Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 5 of the anime series, Onihei, which was, for all intents and purposes, absolutely hilarious, putting very much the focus upon one of the underlings in Heizo Hasegawa's, investigative criminal bureau, the Arson Theft Control Bureau, I think it is, which I'm still struggling to memorize. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue. But for all intents and purposes, in the spotlight is Chugo Kimura, this cat who very much likes the ladies, or at least for the purposes of this episode's story. One lady in particular, Omatsu, this prostitute who works in a local brothel, that he is having these clandestine meetings with, all the while he's supposed to be patrolling the streets. He's supposed to be out casing the area after dark, looking for criminal activity, because all of this coincides with this very bloodthirsty, murderous criminal Shugoro of Hakabe making a move closer and closer to Heizo's jurisdiction. This cat leaves a calling card in the form of these little model buildings, these 5-tier buildings or whatever it is, and this is how you know he's taking credit for these vicious murders and things like that, and robberies, thieveries, all this kind of stuff. Whatever this guy has been doing, he leaves this calling card, and this is one more fascinating detail that this series has really kind of reminded me, and I think I touched base upon in the comments with one of you guys in one of my previous episode discussion videos, talking about Heizo almost being akin to like Batman and all these criminals being like a rogues gallery of a sort. Here we have a criminal who leaves a calling card very much akin to the Joker, who would leave a Joker calling card, when the commissioner of the police, Jim Gordon, or Batman himself would be investigating a crime and that sort of thing, to know that it's the Joker taking credit. Very much is it similarly so with Shugoro of Hakabe. He leaves these buildings behind, and one of the chief investigators for Heizo comes to him and says, we know it's this guy because we found one at this particular tea house or whatever it was, where everyone was slaughtered at the beginning of the episode. So Heizo has had to put the entire area on lockdown and keep an eye out for this guy, knowing that he is getting closer and closer to his jurisdiction, including putting Chugo, out on the line. And Chugo, he immediately just spends all of his money, all of his time when he's supposed to be out patrolling on Omatsu. And Omatsu really seems to dig him. I almost erroneously had this idea, like it would be something similar to Samurai Champloo, where you saw a kid trying to get, this woman out of a brothel scenario. Very similarly did I think Chugo was going to end up, coming to Omatsu and saying, let me rescue you from this lifestyle and let's, settle down and get married, something grandiose like that. Little could I have suspected that rather than that, would he spend all his money, be absolutely broke. We start the episode, his tearful-eyed, resigning himself to the fact that he can no longer see Omatsu, but Omatsu has actually been getting money and has a whole bunch of gold stacked, stockpiled, that she is now willing to pay for his, continued liaisons with her. That's how much she's into him. And it's that fact that she's so into him, she's actually willing to pay the bills so he can still come and get with her and everything. I'm like, oh, is there a genuine romance blossoming here? Maybe? All the while, coincidence, convenience of the plot may have it that Shugoro of Hakabe is actually the guy who is funding this girl without any actual sexual activity on his part, just because Omatsu reminds him of a woman he once loved like 20 years ago, something along those lines. He just likes spending time with her and talking to her. He pays her for that time. And this money, subsequently, whether she understands it or not, she's actually kind of trading secrets, talking about this mysterious Ronin, who is Chugo, who it's arguable whether or not Shugoro actually knows, Chugo's actual employ, rather than being a roving Ronin with no actual employ. It's arguable whether or not he suspects that Chugo is part of Heizo Hasegawa's bureau or not. I don't exactly think he had any idea of that. Maybe he was just looking for, keeping tabs on somebody he may think to hire at a later time as another member of his gang, something along those lines. But for all intents and purposes, everything comes to a head because Chugo, he ends up getting chewed out for spending time with Omatsu in the brothel. He's found out because Heizo sends Kumahachi to follow him and find out what he's doing. And he overhears the conversation that, Chugo has with Omatsu, sort of parroting the philosophy of Shugoro, talking about, sometimes in doing good, sometimes having good intentions, you may be wanting to taking evil intentions for a grander purpose, and vice versa. Maybe while doing evil, you're actually doing good. Maybe you're Robin Hooding, the rich and giving to the poor. It kind of, there's that gray area in the good versus evil thing, that philosophy, that questioning, that dilemma, that moral dilemma. And, Chugo seems very much compelled by this. It is something that later Heizo himself kind of throws back at him. We're seeing amidst, flashbacks to Chugo's father, who passed away and could not leave him very much, which he's very much poignantly motivated to think about. Because he has spent every last dime in the brothel, he has no more of this money. He's squandered it all for all intents and purposes. So he's very critically aware and thinking sort of moralistically about what his choices have been. And he's reminiscing about how his father said honesty above all, should be how you live your life. You live honestly. You don't lie. You don't, thieve. You don't do all these morally, irreprehensible things. And it's hilarious that he's brought to this. When he is reprimanded, it's absolutely hilarious. There's two moments in the episode. One where he's been spending all his time with Amatsu, and he's happy-go-lucky. He's got this glow about him. And this is what gets Heizo's suspicion up. The guys call Heizo over, and they look at him through a door. And he's like, this is bothersome. Why is he so jubilant? What's got him so happy? And then later, after getting reprimanded, he's all thin, he's sickly, and Heizo loses himself. He just starts cracking up, laughing his ass off. Because now Chugo ain't getting any. He ain't going out and having these clandestine meetings anymore with Amatsu. As I say, though, everything comes to a head, spectacularly so, with Heizo Hasegawa's entire bureau, because Chugo had snuck out, intending to go see Amatsu one last time. He basically was followed, and he stumbled onto the fact that Shugoro's guys, they're all meeting, they're probably going to be enacting some heinous crime, some murderous, bloodthirsty event, and right on his coattail is Heizo. So ends up meeting up with Chugo, who has fallen asleep, by the way, as they're waiting overnight for all of the gang to get into this secret hideout and everything. And they end up busting the place up. One of Heizo's guys, I'm not sure which one of them it was, manages to slash Shugoro up, and he, gets thrown through a doorway. And there is Chugo outside with his sword extended, in hand. But unfortunately, even with this guy lethally wounded and down on all fours, stabbing at him, crawling across the ground with Chugo landing on his ass, even then, Chugo is not a force to behold. He's very cowardly and trying to scramble away for his life. It's ironic that he ends up getting the credit for this, and that Heizo sort of takes pity on him and gives him a monetary reward because he's so ineffectual. But this is basically because I guess he feels bad for Chugo. He ends up going, as we find out toward the end of the episode, Heizo has gone to the tea house, the brothel, to try to make amends for the bill that Chugo potentially owed and everything like that. He lets it slip to the woman who runs the place, the madam, that it is Chugo Kamura. And she hears that name and she's like, no, it couldn't be, could it? Could it be the son of, she thinks immediately of Chugo's father, who it turns out the reason why he had such a modest stipend to leave Chugo after his death was because he was frequenting the same brothel, and he was spending all his money and all his time with this madam so many years ago, completely just discombobulating Chugo's entire worldview. He's about to swear off Amatsu, he's about to walk away from the brothel and that lifestyle, all told, and live very honorably to his father's wishes of honesty, honesty, honesty. And he's like, F that. And now that I know Dad was porking this lady, I'm going after Amatsu, even though she's in another town now. So it's like, oh man, the whole episode just had me dying and cracking up. Once again, the choreography of the fights and everything, very classic in style, very bloody and gory and everything like that. And just all kinds of badass, but amidst such a comical story to do with Chugo. spending all his money, having a little bit of money left over at the end, a reward for something he didn't even do, and he's like, F it, screw it, I'm going after him. So, oh man, just a delightful episode. One, again, to really be enjoyed in the course of all of the 5 episodes of the series thus far. And I just can't wait to see if we're going to have an overarching story at all, or, if it's going to continue to be episodic. I really don't know. I'm not familiar at all with any of the origin materials that this is based on, whether the written works or the prior TV series and films and things of that nature. I know that some of these episodes very closely reinterpret some of those original TV episodes, and I'd like to actually go back and watch them at some point to see what sort of the differences are and such like that. I think this particular series, I think somebody told me that they're putting more emphasis on female characters. In the last episode or the episode prior to that, there was a female character that actually hadn't even appeared in the original story. So I find that highly intriguing, and I want to know more. I want to see whether this is going to continue to be episodic in nature, or if we're going to have a sort of big bad criminal that Hazel will have to confront, whether with his, bureau in tow or by himself, all that kind of stuff. So just really, really awesome. I'm actually really excited about the next episode, where it seems like some old man tries to hire Hazel, not knowing who he is, as a criminal for some criminalistic venture. That promises to be probably all kinds of hilarious as well. And so, yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.